Welcome to Tiki Man and the Viking podcast. He is Tiki Man.
I am H.B. Burlow, the historical crime fiction author of two series, the Ark City Confidential Chronicles and the Wichita Chronicles. Over there is the Viking.
I am William Bryan Johnson, author of Hell to Pay, The Dark Cry of Aristed, and coming soon. June 25th, from Wild Rose Press, Middle-Aged Man in a Trash Can.
Thank you for giving me a birthday present of your book being released. I've always said that. That's great.
I will put a bow on it.
Yeah. We're continuing on our emphasis and our discussions about OWFI. We are pleased and privileged to have one of the faculty members of this year's conference, May 1st to May 3rd, Conjuring the Mysteries of Writing. Samantha Ryan is a queer fiction writer from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Her debut novel, Pride, a queer retelling of Pride and Prejudice, is set for release in February of 2025 through Rattling Good Yarns Press. A chapbook collection of her flash fiction, Words My Friends Have Thrown Away, is scheduled for release from SIAM in spring of 2025. Her novel, These Are Not My Final Words, was a 2024 OWFI winner for unpublished fiction and was recently acquired by Trueborn Press. She lives in Tulsa with her chunky German Shepherd, needy cat, and half a dozen plants she can barely keep alive. Sam Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I want to point out one thing there. I believe, I'm not sure which category we're referencing, but I think I also entered unpublished fiction last year. So that means you beat me. Congratulations.
Uh-oh. Thank you.
It sounds like you've had a busy year and a half between Pride coming out and the OWFI winner going to be released. It's happening right now.
Yeah. In the last, I'd say 2 years, I've definitely been finally seeing a lot of that hard work pay off and getting some things out there and published. It's been a lot of fun.
No kidding. Where did the impetus for Pride come along? Because that's interesting to take Jane Austen, classic, and reformulate it. How did that come about?
Yeah, obviously I've always been a fan of Jane Austen in general, but then I think what I really love retellings of those stories. There's so many that are in the modern film world that we get a lot of Pride and Prejudice redos every few years. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I've always wanted to kind of take that story and kind of make it my own, but then also I only write queer fiction. So I was like, let's take it and just make it a little gay. And so that's kind of where it started
Why
from.
Not?
What is one of your favorite retellings?
Honestly, one of my absolute favorites is Bride and Prejudice, which is the Bollywood version of Pride and Prejudice. And it is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend, if you are a Jane Austen fan, definitely check it out. It's very, very good.
Now, the novel at OWFI, now that's really a kicker where you're winning in unpublished fiction and then it turns around. Now, did that come about from any of the meetings that you had at OWFI? Did you attend last year? I should ask that first.
I didn't attend last year. I attended the year before, and that was my first year attending then, or maybe it was the year before that. And I had seen the contest whenever I was there that time, and I thought, well, I really want to participate in the contest. And so that's why I then last year participated in the submission for that.
Good.
So that book is coming out this fall. It'll be mid-November. And that one's a very fun one. It's a complete tonally shift from Pride. It's about a friend who just lost his best friend and writing partner to suicide. And their TV character is an animated duck. And this duck shows up at the friend's funeral. And so now he's got to figure out how to let go of the duck. And by doing so, let go of the grief that he's carrying around with his friend. So it's kind of like Harvey-ish.
Okay. That was my question. Is it kind of like Happy to where he's the only one seeing it? And...
Correct.
Oh, yes. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And the duck was voiced by the friend in the TV show. So throughout the book, this duck that he's talking to is speaking from the voice of his dead friend. So it's very,
My goodness. You're
It's a great book.
you're gonna be very entertaining at the conference. I can tell you that right now. Oh my goodness sakes! Now? When did you start writing? Where did that all come from?
So I think the first hook in my mouth was "As I Lay Dying" by William Faulkner. I had a teacher, an English teacher. I think probably I would say 80% of writers, whenever you ask that question, are like, "It's an English teacher."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we love English teachers. And so my stories are different. In high school, I read "As I Lay Dying," William Faulkner, and there's one chapter where he just writes, "My mother is a fish." And reading that in high school, I was like, you can't do that. That's not a chapter. You can't do that. It was so just mind blowing that this is how he was writing. That my teacher at the time, she was an English major in college and at TU where I went to college. And she was like, I really think this path might be for you. And so she kind of lit that fire as far as wanting to be a writer. So I went to college, got a degree in creative writing, wrote my first novel, and then quit after I started querying. And I was like, oh, I'm way too thin skinned for this. I cannot handle it. Totally gave up. So then spent about 10 to 12 years doing a lot of other things that were not in any way satisfying or enjoyable. And only post-COVID really have I gotten back to thinking that, maybe this is really what you want to do as a career.
God, that's wonderful. I'm glad you did decide to come back because there is such a passion. And maybe that's the thing that brought you back is after the whole business aspect of it, which it does everybody. Then you go back to the passion of what made you become a writer, a musician, an artist of any sort, and that's what you hold on to. That's fantastic. What else?
100%.
Okay, so you've got the retelling of Jane Austen. You've got this. What genre would you say this forthcoming novel is?
The Imaginary Duck. I put it in literary fiction.
Okay.
I think a lot of what I've written since Pride is, very squarely a rom-com. I put it in romance.
Okay.
And then the stuff that I've written since then, it veers more, I think, towards literary fiction. There are like romantic subplots and things inside of it, but really, I think I enjoy writing literary fiction. Definitely the character-driven, psychological type stories I think are really interesting to me.
Tell us about your first book.
The one that I quit?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so bad. It was a funeral that these siblings had to come back because their mom had passed away. And it was the first time that they'd seen each other in years. And so it was 5 siblings. They came back to Tulsa. A lot of my stuff that I write is set in Tulsa. And it was the first time that they had seen each other. So it was like them getting to re-know each other, but then also dealing with the loss of their mom. And I've actually rewritten that book now. I just finished rewriting it for my 3rd time. So in this version that I have now, I think I'm much more happy with. It's not a funeral, it's a vow renewal. And it deals a lot more of like just family and parentage and dealing with siblings and your parents as you're getting older and, a lot of that kind of thing. So, and it's set in Key West. I moved it to Key West. So they're actually staying in Ernest Hemingway's house while they're in Key West.
I went there last summer.
Yeah, I've been there. It's really, really fun. So that's basically like their Airbnb while they're in Key West for this vow renewal. Awesome. So it's a lot more kind of quirky, absurd, and I enjoy it a lot more.
Well, any place that has 6-toed cats is quirky.
I know.
You gotta go with that. Exactly. Oh my goodness. So I mean, you've also got the collection of flash fiction. You've got the queer novel, the literary fiction, the flash fiction. Do you find it invigorating to bounce around between genres, category, styles, or are you still finding your way and trying to get into a track? Where are you at this point?
Yeah, I think I have a friend. She's kind of on a similar track. She just did a book of poetry. She was like, I feel like we're Thanos if we're collecting genres like they're Infinity Stones. We're both kind of going around trying these different things. But I think, again, like you were saying with the business side of it, I think when I graduated college, I had such this mindset of like the novelist and the novelist does this. And it was like this one track, fresh out of college, didn't know anything, that kind of, and now coming back to writing, doing it for fun, doing it. I don't want to say not seriously, because obviously I take writing very seriously, but doing it to where I'm enjoying it for the sake of writing, not for the sake of the business side of it. Definitely, I think allows me to open my mind more to doing different genres. And also even like exploring a project that may not go anywhere. I could write something and then just put it in a pile and then no one would ever see it, and that would be okay. And so I think I've tried to like take the pressure off of myself of that, for where you don't have to be a romance writer or literary fiction. Like you could try all these things and see what works and what doesn't.
Of course, you get to be older and maybe you find yourself more settled in. But here's the thing with me. I 41 years ago studied filmmaking at the University of Miami when they were making it on film,
wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I segued into poetry. I was in Boston in the 90s for the poetry scene, and then I write historical crime fiction now. But I've had the Jones to say, you know what? I'd like to go back and revisit some of the poetry. I think that there's this kind of a wave of finding yourself, trying several different things, perhaps settling in, and then saying, I'm not an old fuddy-duddy. Ryan, no comment.
And no comment.
Right. I'm not an old fuddy-duddy, and I want to flex my muscles again. I think it is that creative impulse that drives us to go, what else can I do? Now, that being said, what is, what is the thing that you would like to try, not next, but at some point? Poetry, screenplays, what else is out there for you?
So certainly screenplays. I just wrote a pilot for the novel, the TV novel. But I think that novel, I've always loved screenwriting, and I took screenwriting classes in college, but I always feel like screenwriting is such a environmental kind of writing. Like you almost have to be so far deep in that environment. And so I think in my head, I was like, well, I have to be in, LA or Atlanta, or even now I guess Boston, but to do that kind of work. So I think, I just finished the pilot for that, thinking that I want to try to find ways to expand my writing in that way. And I would love to do screenwriting. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I've been told I'm very dialogue heavy, which is why I'm doing one of my talks that I'm doing at OSW is dialogue. And so I think dialogue and screenwriting go hand in hand, obviously.
How are you going to put the screenplay out there? Is it a similar way of doing it, kind of like books, or are you agented to put it out, or how do you get that out to producers?
The thing I just completed was for a contest that I saw, like a local contest that so that was more just to get my feet wet of just trying it out. I did recently, in the last few months, I have acquired an agent, which is super exciting, and they have we've talked already about what it would look like to try to eventually expand into entertainment rights and maybe go down that path. So I do think it's something that I'm going to attempt in the future, but just now barely starting to get my feet wet.
Hey, very cool.
That's fine. Make the effort. What is the other session that you'll be presenting at OWFI?
Short stories, which kind of will go hand in hand with the chapbook collection that I just released. So a lot of the techniques that I use for that collection, I'm going to be presenting in the speaker panel.
Talk a little bit about your flash fiction.
Sure. So that came after I finished a novel. I was sitting around, I was bored, I didn't have anything to do. And I went on social media and I said, hey, give me a word. Because I have a lot of writer friends on there, and they were like, words. So then I just started getting people commenting of all of these words. Flabbergasted is one of my favorites. Some of defenestration was one. Behoove. Some of them I didn't know. I had to look up. I was like, wow, you guys are really calling me out because I don't even know what these words mean. And then I compiled that list of words and then just started creating these little pieces from different points of view and identities. That's all queer identities in different ways. So it's kind of fun to think of like someone giving you something as a starting point, not knowing what their intent might be with that word, and then you finding the path for it, and then collecting these words together in this collection that I have a theme, an overarching theme that they didn't have any idea of when they were giving it to me. Right. And so that's why I kind of the play on the words of the title. It's words that my friends threw away. They were like, here, we don't want it. You take it. And then I took that word and then put it all together.
Very unique.
It was a lot of fun.
Very unique indeed. Is there a project currently in the works?
So I did the novel that I'm going on submission this year will be it's a puppet book, and so like I said, I couldn't be more all over the place.
That's okay.
So that one that's what I'm currently working on right now. Very excited to hopefully get that out within the next year or two.
Now, puppet book, are you talking about it's a puppet book for like a play with puppets, or is it a how to make puppets, or?
Yeah, like puppets. So it's a husband and wife that do puppetry at Comic-Con.
Okay.
And then the first day of this Comic-Con, the husband tells the wife that he wants a divorce. So it's a novel of just this weekend at a Comic-Con from their point of view, both as a dual POV. So yeah, that's the project that I'm currently working on that I'm super excited about.
I love Comic-Cons, and I'm just sitting here
I
thinking,
do too.
who could walk up and notice, oh, you look sad, and suddenly it's Sam Wilson who played in Flash Gordon, or some odd major pop culture figure coming in to rescue.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think that majoring or studying and getting a degree in creative writing impacted your writing? I mean, I minored in creative writing, but again, that's 40 plus years ago. And I did learn some things, but I didn't take off with it until years later. You came out of the gate with a degree. What were the pluses and minuses of majoring and getting a degree in creative writing in college do?
That's a good question. I mean, I think obviously the major plus there was just the exposure to authors that I would never have found on my own.
Right.
Being able to specialize with the classes that I took. And I went to the University of Tulsa. It's a smaller private school, so our class sizes were very small.
Good.
And so I felt really lucky in that sense to have, when we were studying poetry and there's only 10 people in the class, you really get to deep dive into what the words mean and everything. So I think the ability to just not have the pressure on you in that moment to study this without, when you're that young, you don't realize it's all no stakes, you can really kind of do whatever you want. And so I think that was definitely the pro. The con, I'd say, that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that they don't teach you the business side of writing. So whenever I got out of college, I was still in this creative headspace. I didn't know how to get an agent. I didn't know even, any of those kinds of things, which I would hope that they maybe have changed that now. But even then at the time, the internet, I was sending out queries. I'd print them out with a self-addressed stamped envelope. There was no query tracker or anything that we have now.
Right.
So I think that was very discouraging to be so in the art side of it, of just super creative, young, gonna conquer the world, and then getting out there and realizing you have no idea what you're doing. Yeah. And then I think that is a lot of what led to me just saying, I need to find a job that I can, earn a paycheck right now.
Right.
And then that eventually just led to me kind of giving it up.
And it takes an entrepreneurial hat to kind of launch that other side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if the literary teachers be the right ones to teach class sometimes.
Well, I mean,
that's one thing that I really love about these writers' conferences is so much of what I did learn. There was a writers' conference at TU called Nimrod. They did an annual writing conference. And the things that I have learned has always been from writing conferences. They'll have agents that come in. They have editors that come in. I mean, even at OWFI, there's classes on how to write a query letter. All of those things. That's where you learn all of that. And then just even meeting other writers and getting their perspectives. That's really the school that you need to go to.
And that's what Vicky had indicated, is that OWFI, unlike a lot of other conferences, is geared toward the writer. It's not geared toward the fan. So you will get the agents, the editors, the publishers. There's pitch sessions. There's all of that. Brian pitched last year with an editor from the Wild Rose Press, and because of that, Middle Aged Man in a Trash Can is coming out on June 25th. So those are the opportunities. I mean, I met folks from Wild Rose Press back in 2016, and I've been with them through 6 novels over that period of time. So again, that's the benefit. And why don't they teach business with the creative part? That just gets me.
The writing, creative writing classes I took at WSU, Wichita State University, they never taught the business side of it either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I don't know why they don't.
It's not a liberal art, I guess, but it's more business, and that might be truly nickels and dimes of why they don't. But yeah, I think they need some sort of entrepreneurial training. It's kind of like teaching. They don't teach you how to manage a classroom. You don't really get that until you're in a classroom. But yet, I mean, there's books. They can sit there and kind of tell you some techniques. But I mean, really, you don't learn that until you're on your feet. And it may be that some of that stuff changes so quickly, especially now in this day and age, in this world where agents and editors are kind of doing slightly different things, and our system of printing has completely changed. That maybe they
Definitely,
fear they
yeah.
can't keep up with that.
Sam, how do you balance? We always talk with many people about that concept. You work full time, correct?
Yeah.
All right. You've got your website. You've got multiple writing projects, either being published, currently published, etc. What do you do? How do you stay balanced? The entrepreneurial side, the Sam Ryan, I'm a human being side. How do you balance all of that?
My therapist would probably say I don't, which is something I probably need to work on. I think, I mean, for me, part of it is just like when you want to, eventually my goal is to be full-time writer. So when it's like, that that's the end goal, I can see the checkpoints that I'm hitting along the way to make it worth it to try to spend my time in that way. So like if I have a free, like I tend to write at night. I'm definitely like a night owl. So if I have a few free hours at night, then they know that's just what I'm going to be dedicating my time to, because I know that that's what I'm working towards to try to get to.
Good. That's
Until
important.
you find out, it's 4 a.m. and I've been up all night writing.
Yeah. Yeah, that does happen every now and then.
Yep. Been there myself.
Where do you get to be a certain age, people? Where do you get to be a certain age? Oh,
well, not everybody goes to bed at 8:30.
Ah, 9, you son of a gun. And I stay up,
German.
and I stay up at least till 10 on OWF 5. Okay. Let's not go there. Let's not go there. What are you looking forward to with OWFI and your two presentations? Both interesting, by the way. I think I get you pegged on one of them. I'll see. Fine. I got my list of what I wanted to attend when we're not recording, of course. What are you looking forward to? What do you hope to give, and what do you hope to get from your two presentations?
I think so. What do I hope to give? I think so many of the, like, I'm not an editor, I'm not an agent, so I don't want to do any of like the business side of things, that those guys are the ones that talk about that. So I love getting to go to writers conferences and then just really getting to talk about craft. So I hope that like in both of my sessions, we're going to have exercises that we're actually going to be doing some writing in. And so I just really want it to be kind of maybe a break for a writer. If you're going in and you're hearing from, or you've got pitches, you're listening to editors, and then maybe you come to my session and it's like, oh, we get to take a little writing break. So that's what we really love to do. So, and then also in my sessions, I try to get people to share their writing with each other too. So I feel like that way you can kind of get to know people, because that's one of my favorite things about the writing conferences, is that really writing tends to be so isolating. Obviously, you're doing so much of it on your own, that these are the opportunities to really get to meet people face to face and form those connections that'll last, lifetimes, because that's the person who knows what you're going through. When you get stuck, they get stuck, and you can find critique partners, you can find beta readers, like, there's such an opportunity there to meet new friends and colleagues.
And it was kind of like we talked about in our last podcast. There's almost a high when you go home because you've been around your people. And you have that high, like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to write my next novel tonight.
Yes.
Yep, exactly. Which, like you said, you go to Comic-Cons, it's the exact same way. Whenever you go to a Comic-Con, you're like, yeah, these are my people. You just feel like this is where it is. And then you go home and you're like, when can I go? When's the next one? You've already got the next one scheduled.
Exactly. I used to have that same feeling when I would go in the past. Last year, Brian and I went down together because we were presenting. But in the past, I had a 2.5-hour drive home from Oklahoma City to Wichita, Kansas. And usually, about 10 in the morning on a Sunday, not a lot of traffic out. Road was, pretty free and clear, and you're like thinking and planning. I remember back in 2016, I was pitching the first book of my first historical crime fiction series, and one publisher told me that what they're looking for now is series. So on a 2.5-hour ride home with one book already written and ready to pitch, I'm contemplating 2 more books and also having to focus on the road ahead. And you get that. But there's one thing that I always do that brings me back. I have to bring myself back to reality. I usually go grocery shopping on Sundays. I have my grocery list with me so that when I get home, I drop
There
off
you
my bags and immediately go grocery shopping because, yes, the high is exciting, but if I stay that way, then there's a part of the real world, which we all know we've got to
Yes.
maintain,
Mhm.
that I have to get back to. There's always the writing, and with Brian and I doing the podcast, we just find ourselves actually as much invigorated by these interviews and by talking with other people. That's the high that you have to wait a whole year for, and we
Right.
get that on a regular basis. What else you got for it,
Yeah,
Brian?
definitely.
I don't think I have any other questions. It is funny because you talking about writing something and then taking a big break from it. I did the same thing, and it's one that I keep seeing files on, and it has a little space in my desk that I can pull it out and look at it from time to time. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a book I definitely want to redo. I feel it's done. I just need to go back and re-edit it because it was my baby steps as a writer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always
That's definitely how I feel
good.
with this one.
So
I wonder, does every writer have one of those?
Oh yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got yeah, for sure. And as you move on though, it's funny, as you move on, it's like I'm past that. Some of it is like, this is intriguing, let's go back and check it out. And some of it's like, you know what, I'm past that. That's too simplistic. That's derivative. I don't write that anymore. And maybe you could take it and revise it, but look, once you burn the toast, just get another slice of bread, throw the toast out. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not worth holding on to it.
No,
Although I do have
That's a good point.
I will scrape that down to a fine wafer.
I will. I'll tell Brian a story later about toast, 10 years old. Anyway, we've got OWFI, the conference from May 1st to May 3rd. Sam Ryan's going to be doing 2 sessions, Writing Small, the Power of the Short Story, and Say What? Crafting Dialogue that Speaks Volumes. These sound fascinating. I'm glad you're going to be focusing on craft. I know that you'll be engaging. It was great having you with us.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Well,
wait until you meet us in person. You're like, oh boy.
Yeah. He's tall with a beard. I'm short with a beard.
Yeah.
I wear the Hawaiian shirts. He carries a battle axe. I mean, it's Tiki Man and the Viking.
So exciting.
It's what we do.
Yep.
What we do. And I tell you something, we have started ending our podcast, besides thank you and hope you're listening and so forth, with one great phrase that we tell everybody.
Read a book.
Read a book. That's our mantra for everybody out there. Read a book. Sam Ryan, we will see you May 1st to the 3rd. You have a great time.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy yourself and do well. I know you will.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure having you on. Thanks so much. Tiki Man and the Viking Podcast brought to you by Rumination of Thunder Media. The following intro and outro music was used for this media project. The music Find Them by Alexander Nakrata. Free download from filmmusic.io. License Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International.